Aotearoa Puoro Sounds. E ngā reo, e ngā mana, raurangatira mā, tēnā koutou katoa. You are with the Sounds podcast series for Sounds Centre for New Zealand Music, Aotearoa Puoro, ko Toni Huata ahau. Today I'm joined by Troy Kingi to talk about his music, acting and the influence of Māori boarding schools on his career. Kia ora e hoa. Hey, thank you for joining our hui today and to speak about your music career, your influences, nominations, and also what attending Māori boarding school has had within your music. This is a podcast Zoom, which will be timeless in its broadcast. So to start us off, we'll just do a bit of ko wai koe no hia koe. I can start us off and then we'll move into you. I te taha o tōku koka no Ngāti Kahungunu ki te Wairoa me rongo whakaata ngā iwi. I te taha o tōku pāpā no Wera, Haina, Repara, aireri ngā whenua o ōku tīpuna. Ko te Kaihautu Puoro Māori o Aotearoa Puoro Sounds. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koe, ka huri ki a koe, Troy.
Kia ora, Toni. Ko mata whaura te maunga, ko roto iti te roto, ko ine kura te marae, ko Ngāti Pikia o te hapu, ko tamata kapua te tangata, ko te aroa te waka, ko te aroa te iwi hoki. I whānau mai i roto i te rohe o te aroa, te hoi pera o Rotorua. Engari, i tipu ake au i roto i te rohe o te whānau apanui, ki te kaha nui a tiki, I tēnei wā tonu kei pēwhairangi au, kei kirikiri e noho ana, te tai tokerau, I te tau taku hoa rangatira mea māua tamariki e rima. Ai, koera.
Tēnā koe e hoa, ngā tamariki e rima. Gee, a tāhua rawa te takiwā rā, kiri. Is it beautiful over there?
It's pretty nice, yeah. The last maybe 2-3 years, I haven't spent that much time here. I've been tiki touring all over the place, but it's been good to have these forced lockdowns. I have to be here, so it's been nice just not having time pressure to do anything and just be here with my whānau. It's been pretty nice.
So, thank you, Troy. You're known as an actor, a multi-award-winning, multi-genre musician, obviously originally from Te Arawa, Rotorua, te kaha te whānau apanui, te tai tokerau hoki. In fact, you and I recall going up to te tai tokerau to a kai tito wānanga, and you and Pere were doing your thing with the rangatahi up there, and that was really awesome. So what is your first musical influence and like casting yourself back, and did that contribute towards you wanting to become a composer, musician and actor?
It's a tough question because I'm pretty old. I think probably one of my biggest influences when I was real little was my dad. He was a real good guitarist, and he was actually in a band with his brothers back in the days, Greenstone. So I think subconsciously, it was always around me, but I always remember him just being an amazing guitarist. I remember my mum telling him to teach me how to play the guitar, and I didn't really have the patience. He had good patience, but I got real hoa real quick. So he did teach me like 3 chords when I was about 8 or 7 or something, and that was pretty much it until I went to boarding school. I didn't really pick up the guitar again. But he's probably my first influence. Whether or not it made me want to be a musician, I'm not quite sure.
Wow, interesting. When I reflect back to being a tai tamariki, tai tamaiti, and I remember my grandfather, he played the ukulele, or the ukulele, and but I just remembered what struck me was just how happy the whānau were when they sang whatever Waiata Māori that we were singing at the time, and you know, and obviously there's lots of composition that rolls through the whānau, dad and his brothers. When I say dad, that was my grandfather. And so I think that's probably one of my earliest memories, that probably just, it was the hari koa, it was the happiness, the joy of te reo Māori and the joy of whānau. So, oh yeah, no, choice there, huh? That's great to hear. So do you think that had an impact on you as well in terms of your acting, Mahi?
I don't know. I don't know why. I kind of fell into acting quite late. It just happened. I wasn't looking for it or anything. It just kind of happened. There was a little stint when I was at high school where that's what I wanted to do was be an actor. After I watched this theatre company come through Te Aute College. So I ended up going to the youth drama school at Havelock North. Might have been over 20 years ago now. And basically there you could do screen acting, you could do improvisation, you could do stand-up comedy. There was a range of different things you could do. I ended up doing screen acting, not even knowing what it was. And then at the end of the week, there was a big showcase to our parents would come down to Havelock North, and the stand-up comedians were working on their piece all week, the singers or whatever. And then for us in the screen acting, we had to do one scene with another person. So there was a big screen there, and then our scene come up, and I saw myself, and I just cringed the whole time. And I was like, I don't think that's for me. So that was it. When I was about 15, 16, I was like, nah, I'm not going to be an actor. And it kind of stayed like that for over 10 years before something just come out of nowhere. But I definitely didn't think I was going to be an actor for most of my life.
Well, you know, it's interesting where our life paths take us their way, and how opportunities can sort of like come your way, or the right type of character come your way. You know, you and I, we don't know each other that well, right? But what I've seen from like your videos and you playing a character in film and stuff, I see a very, and this is me not really, and I don't want to sound funny or anything, not really knowing you, but I see the good thing about screen is that stories are told through the eyes. And one thing that's, you know, like always struck me with you is that you appear to me like a deeply reflective person, which is the true sense of what an artist is. And so in that light, because I've had theatre experience, and theatre, you've got to be heightened, you've got to be bigger, you've got to like open up your body, open up your voice, hit the back wall and stuff, but totally different format to screen acting, which is totally in your eyes, and the camera can tell when you're not telling the truth, or when you're lying, when you're teka, and all of that sort of thing. So what a wonderful experience you had over there in Havelock North. Was that when you were at Te Aute College?
Yes, yeah. I don't know how I got onto that school, but maybe it was one of the teachers asking if anyone was interested in doing anything like that. And I don't think it was a cool thing to be into when you were at Te Aute College, but I was like, yeah, I'm keen. So I think I was the only one from TA to actually go over there and do that. But it was cool. It was good fun.
And there you go. There you go. Like, maybe you might not have consciously thought it, but your hoa wairua must have known it, and you were the only one there from your kura doing that sort of stuff. You know, like when I was I went to Turakina Māori Girls College, and for us it was all about kapahaka. But prior to that, I'd come from singing sort of like primary, Hastings Intermediate and Central Primary, and it was real choir orientated. So like we were in the sopranos, etc. So when I first hit boarding school, I think the seniors noticed that I had a high voice and that I take the harmony naturally and stuff like that. And what I noticed going to boarding school was the amazing harmonies that in our first assembly in chapel, and it was just quite mind-blowing, that type of legacy of singing and waiata, but most importantly, the pride, the mana that you were upholding for your kura. So, at your time when you were with Te Aute, tell us about maybe a little bit about your boarding school life and some of the contributions that, outside of this acting one, maybe in the musical sense of what it had with your career choice in music.
Yeah, I suppose like you talking about that harmony, that wairua that you would have felt at Turakina, I felt that same thing at Te Aute. It's, I don't know how to explain it. Like, you look at a matatini level kapahaka, and then you look at Māori boarding school kapahaka. Māori boarding school wasn't about being 100% as loud as possible. It was just the sweet blending of voices, and you hear that same sound that St. Joe's now, that very same sound that they've had for years and years and years. It's just that feeling, that's the ultimate feeling for me at boarding school, and that was one thing that I loved the most about boarding school was the kapahaka. When like regional time came around, when we had inter-house kapahaka, that was my favorite time, was just having kapahaka practice all weekend, or after you finish your homework, you'd shoot over to the marae and do kapahaka practice. But I think it was all about feeling that wairua that we're talking about. Going back to the guitar, didn't pick it up again until I got to boarding school. It was out of necessity. All the seniors had left, and they needed someone to play the guitar at the chapel. I think it was the last 2 weeks of school. So I just picked up the guitar and started playing it just out of necessity, and kind of just haven't put it down since then. There was no music. There was no music classes or anything like that. No drama classes. So it's probably actually a big reason why I left boarding school. I don't know why I wanted to write songs, but I just felt like I needed to write songs, and it just didn't cater to that at school. It was a big decision to leave boarding school, but I think in the end it was the right decision, just in the trajectory that I was heading anyway.
So where did you go? Where did you go? What was the next kura you went to?
Well, I was still living in Te Kaha when I was at boarding school, and then my last year there, I was fifth form, or year 11, and my parents ended up moving up here, up north. They got mahi up here, and asked if I wanted to stay at TA or if I wanted to go to school up there, and I ended up going to Kirikiri High School, which was a massive culture shock. There was probably only 2 other brown faces in our school, and going from a school over 150 years, a massive legacy, to one that was looking at the Ducks board or the head boy board only went back to the 70s was a bit of a culture shock. But I feel like that's where I learned most of my fruitiness as far as writing and stuff goes. Sitting in on my mates' band practices and hearing these different styles of music that I'd never listened to before. Real heavy, rocky stuff, whereas at TA we probably only listen to hip-hop and R&B. So it definitely sent me on the path, I think. So opening up to wider genres and different styles of music.
Wow. So again, that was obviously a huarahi that was meant to be travelled, and hard to kehi, fruity, opening it up to more fruity styles. but again, it's about that creativity, and it's that whakawhānui. And you're right about boarding school. Like, when I was at boarding school, it was hip hop, R&B, and wasn't so much into reggae, but reggae as well, tended to be the genres that most rangatahi listened to, probably still listen to. And, rock, forget it. But, it's been more appreciated now. But, so, your Waiata, Call My Name, is that a reflection of Te Aute or Kiri? Or
say it was
else?
a reflection. It was probably more like primary school. I don't know. It was so long ago that I'm lucky that I had my daughter to actually help me write that, because she's 13. She's deep in school right now. So I had to dig deep into my memory banks to try and remember what school felt like. I just remember when we used to walk to school and just having mean as icy fields, and like when you walk past and you leave your footprints in the field as you're going past, and all those sorts of things. But I feel like it was so. I was actually a good student. You listen to that song, it sounds like I was a real troublemaker, but I was actually a good student. There was a couple times where I got in trouble, but I was actually a good student at school.
Hey, nothing wrong with being a good student, because, most rangatahi, you'll either get sort of like, you might go in and you're hāngai ki te mahi, hāngai ki te kaupapa, rongo ki ngā kaiako, so you're that way inclined, and then there comes a moment where you might get distracted by your hoa, by your peers, and you've got something maybe to prove. I know that was a little bit of my experience, that this was more at boarding school, and probably what I've noticed with a lot of rangatahi, which can sometimes change the directory of being a good student, hāngai ki te mahi, to maybe a disruptive student. But for various reasons, that's the pathway that's taken. And particularly if you're an artistic type of student, so you're either inward reflecting, or you want to sort of be, I guess, the natural leader, the one that everyone sort of like follows, and you want to express that part in yourself, which sometimes can be misunderstood by certain schooling systems. Anyway, I'm having a bit of a rant, so I'll finish that one. I'll finish that one. I'm just reflecting on my own tamariki, but I just wanted to get to, it's interesting that you mentioned your girl, because you mentioned that she helped you with the, by sending poetry, because she's right in it, eh? And probably perhaps particularly to the Black Sea Golden Ladder album, would that be right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, like that one was sort of, obviously, it marks that 10 albums, 10 genres, 10 years kaupapa that you have. And so just jumping ahead a little bit, but how did you find that project in the writing genre? And I see your girl was contributed to the poetry, and it's always good to include our tamariki. I really, really support that too. And also the work with Delaney Davidson.
Yeah, well, starting this 10 albums in 10 years, 10 different genres. The first 2 years were quite easy because I had a clear vision of what it was going to be. And I might have had ideas to contribute to it. So I'd say the first 3 years were kind of easier. And the way that I do each of them is put the album out. I have pretty much 10 months until we're about to put the next one out. And I spend that time listening to the type of music that I want to try and emulate, that I want to try and pick apart and figure out. With the Black Sea Golden Ladder album, we had only just put out The Ghost of Freddie Caesar, and the turnaround was really quick, and it was already organized. I was going to be in writing mode with Delaney. I only had about 3 weeks between the release of Freddie Caesar and us going into writing mode. So as far as my normal way of doing stuff, I didn't have that time to sit down with the music and figure it out. But in saying that, I was listening to bits and pieces through that whole time, even though I hadn't put out Freddie Caesar. I was trying to think ahead because I knew there was going to be a quick turnaround. But luckily for me, I did have Delaney, who was entrenched in that type of music, to help drive it for me. And I feel like that's kind of probably going to be the way ahead for me in the future, is bringing those rangatira, those specific genres to come on board, to make my life a little bit easier. But us two, we both like writing really fast. He's a really prolific writer. And the initial concept of the album was supposed to be me writing poems about different phases in life, until I started writing the poems, and they were making me cringe, like watching myself for the first time at youth drama school. Same feeling. So I was like, no, let's not do that. Instead, we took those different themes and we just had kind of wānanga on each of them. We'll just sit down and talk about each one. And the way he wanted to do it was lyrics first, kind of how I wanted to do it with the poems. But I didn't know how to do lyrics first because I had never written. I always write the music before lyrics. So it was quite tricky for me. So instead of that, we'd have our wānanga. I'd have a kōrero about my thoughts and experience on those different phases in life. And then after about an hour, he'd flip his laptop around and go, okay, I think we've got some kupu here. Let's write to these. And then after 4 days, we had written the whole album. So it was pretty quick. It was 4 days. And we're both very strong-minded. So that was another obstacle to get over. I'd put an idea and he would like fight it, or he'll put an idea and I'd fight it. So we had to find some middle ground. But in the end, it's like an album that he'd never make on his own. It's an album I'd never make on my own. So we're both proud of it. If I had done it by myself, I don't know what it would have sounded like. If it would have even got done, to be honest.
Well, with that fast turnaround, far out, holy hicka. But, it's quite a task to even set, 10 albums, 10 genres, 10 years. It's huge. There's some really prolific artists, and they've been in the industry for 30 years, but they've done, I don't know, 4 albums or something. I know that for me, let's say 20 years, 7 albums, but like 10 years, 10 albums, 10 different genres, that's a awesome task. And it's good to hear what your process has been with them, because I was going to ask that with the next question, which is about congratulations, by the way. You're a finalist in the Waiata Māori Music Awards for Best Māori Solo Artist, Tāne Best Māori Songwriter for All Your Ships Have Sailed, the Best Māori R&B Album, and the Best Māori Pop Album for The Ghost of Freddie Caesar. You're also a finalist with the APRA Silver Scroll Awards for All Your Ships Have Sailed, and Tūranga Waiwai, written with Tipene, Macy, and Tene. So it sort of leads us into that question. Do you thrive with collaboration, or do you prefer solo compositions? You've in a way sort of answered it with the previous question, but what's your process, let's say, for either?
Yeah, just the overall summing up of that. I feel like you need collaboration in order to see an idea from a different light. But you need time to yourself in order to get it done, to how you want it to be done, without people questioning you. So you need a bit of both. As far as collaboration goes, working with Delaney, that's probably the biggest project I've done. I also done the Polynesian Panthers as well this year, working with a few other artists. And then there was something supposed to happen next week. New Zealand Symphony Orchestra show was supposed to happen. That's not happening anymore. But I don't know. I feel like with any collaboration, why people want to collaborate with you in the first place is because of your own sound. So I feel like whenever you're in a collaboration, just trying to be as true as possible to yourself. And hopefully they're as true as possible to themselves. And that's the exciting thing, is hopefully seeing those two things come together in a completely different way. like last year when we had our first lockdown, people were asking how creative I was, how much stuff I got done. I didn't do anything apart from collaborations that were people sent me stuff and asked if I wanted to jam on it. I ended up doing about 10 different things, like guitar on different tracks or singing on different tracks. I like the challenge of working on someone's project that's kind of already finished, but they've left a little gap for me, and seeing how much of an imprint I can put onto something that's already done. I like that challenge, but also I just finished doing a collaboration. She's a Spanish musician from the States that was locked over here since last WOMAD last year. But she sent me something to do a collaboration with her, and I didn't know how I could fit into it because it felt like she had made it too much, that there was no room for me to put anything into it. So I said, why don't we just start from scratch? So in some instances, it's good to just see what you can do with nothing. See what each other can bring to the table. Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but there's like different ways to do everything. There's not one way, not one set way to do anything. Just depends on the circumstances. But whether or not I like collaborating more than doing solo stuff, I like them both in equal measures. I like doing stuff by myself. Like I said, I've got no one to question my ideas. That's probably why I can get away with so many crazy ones, like the Shake That Skinny Ass all the way to Zagatron, because there's no one going, what are you doing? But then sometimes it's good to have that in order to make something that's nice and polished and nice and beautiful.
Tika. You know, that's one thing I have noticed about you, and it's the mark of a true artist, is that you express your own story with whatever phase that you might be at, like say in your life, or whatever you're into at that time, and as opposed to catering to what your audience may want from you at that time, or what different audiences may want. And that's a mark of a true artist, is when someone can be brave enough to go, I'm into this and I'm going to do that. And yeah, no, tautoko, I agree that collaboration has its space, its place, and likewise being inward reflecting and solo writing. I'm a bit of a person, in terms of my own stuff, I tend to write by the words first. Like I'll come up with the stories or the inspirations, and then I'll go for a hikoi. I tend to walk a lot. I don't go from the instrument. I do the other way, but like your friend David. But such is the way, very similar to, I guess, te reo Māori and like karanga and more tetea and stuff. You look at the kupu and it already sends you, this is just for me, sends you on a certain rangi and a certain journey. But yeah. No. Ka pai, do you think that that you that your albums, as you've progressed, that your writing style has changed?
Definitely. I don't know how, but I know that, like, say for instance, a couple of the genres that I worked on aren't like my main normal styles. But in order to be authentic and genuine to them, you try and figure out what makes that style tick. And in doing so, you pick up little feathers for your cap of songwriting. So I've said it a few times in a couple interviews. I don't know. I'm looking forward to getting to the end of the 10 albums and just writing a song without any boundaries and seeing what happens. And I feel like, yeah, every little step, every little album I go through, I'm just getting different things for my songwriting arsenal. And then come out the other side and I like got all these like songwriting guns ready to blow something away. I don't know. Yeah, I definitely, well, yeah, to be honest, from the last album, Black Sea Golden Ladder, I've actually nearly finished writing my next album, which was supposed to come out in December, but it's probably getting pushed to February. I did take a lot of the learnings I did with Delaney into this new one. something that I'd never done before this Black Sea Golden Note was look at myself in the mirror. That's something Delaney said with folk music. It's kind of like stripping away and telling it as it is. I feel like I used to hide behind these tricky metaphors a lot of the time when I was writing stuff, which is kind of reflective of a lot of the music that I listen to is kind of like that. But then just saying something as it is, I feel like it cuts to the core of the listener, to their heart, and it's just straight away easily digestible. So I haven't fully gone on that sort of songwriting path, but I've definitely taken bits of it, and I question a lot of stuff that I do when I'm writing the lyrics. Now I'm like, hey, I'll write something. I'll go, how can we make it a bit more personal? How can I make it a bit more immediate? So, yeah, I feel like I said, I can't wait to get to the end of the 10 albums and see what sort of skills I've learned. Because I don't know. Subconsciously, I'm picking stuff up, but you probably won't know until you sit down and look at it all.
Tika, and it's a bit like acting, eh? Like I know, like with Toi Whakaari, they used to work on the scenario of stripping down the layers, getting to the core of the person. Sometimes that may have worked and sometimes that may not have worked for different people, especially from a cultural point of view. But like what you're saying with, the whakamarama being more intermediate, more personal, more cutting to the chase, and that whole less is more, less is more. Iti te kupu, nui te kōrero, that type of whakaaro behind all of that. And I think that's where, like I've even noticed that with a little dabble into, let's say, country, with one Waiata for my grandfather about mohaka, and it was the country genre, but it was just iti te kupu, nui te kōrero. It's just so, like tika and right there in your face. But, I reckon that, you've had a lot of, let's say, acting in films like Mount Zion, Pa Boys, Hunt for the Wilder People, and TV shows like Toke, more recently, Find Me a Māori Bride, I saw on your website, and Songs from the Inside. Most have included, I guess, musical themes, life lessons, and your characters have tended to be more the natural, relatable Māori doi style. And so are your music videos. They're very narrative. So you've sort of said that your acting, it just sort of came to you, it just happened. But how did you get into the screen, like those type of projects, film projects, TV projects, and what entices you, like if you're selecting or choosing, for your TV, film, and even your music videos?
Oh, that's a big question. The very first project. So I done my my youth drama school, and then I threw that career out the window. I wasn't going to be an actor. Fast forward 10, 11 years, I'd had a few different jobs. I think I just finished 6 years working as a scuba dive instructor, and I hung up my scuba diving instructing boots to be a teacher, to study, and I got a call from one of my good friends, his uncle, who's pretty much the same age as him, asking me if I wanted to audition for this new film. And I was like, yeah, cool. And my mate had told me about that. He had told me that his uncle, same age as him, was looking for musicians that could act or actors that could play an instrument so that they look good on screen. And he kept putting my name forward to his uncle. And he told me that probably two years before I got that call. So it was like the last thing in the back of my mind. Anyway, I was like, yeah, cool, let's do it. So we had teed up a time to do this audition, and it was on the way back from Tauranga Mai Tawhiti Kapaka practice down the coast. It was Saturday night, and our daughter got a bit sick, so we're like, oh, we're going to head home. So we kind of left really early, and we got to Auckland about nine or something from Te Kaha. So we left super early, and we teed up an early audition with this fella, and like you're talking about, theatre acting and screen acting, completely different. But I was doing theatrical acting, too big, too massive, and it's like, oh. But then in the gaps of when I was doing my audition that was super huge, I'll be like, I don't know what I'm doing. I honestly don't know what I'm doing. And it's like, no, try it again. So I do the scene, I go, honestly, bro, I don't know what I'm doing. So I kept doing that same thing, and he's like, okay, sweet as, you don't need to show me you can sing. I know you can sing, but I'll talk to my producer and we'll get back to you in a couple of days. And I thought that was it. That was pretty crap. But then he got back to me a couple of days later and said that the audition was bad. But then in the gaps when I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, he's like, that was actually the character. So if you can do that, that's it. That's 100% the character. So he asked me if I wanted it. I was like, yeah. And the following weekend, 2 weeks after quitting my job, I just got my papers, done this audition, and 2 weeks after that, I was in Pukekohe, borrowed Tim Morrison's car, who I only just met, and I was sitting on the side of the road eating lunch with Stan Walker, who I only just met. It was like a quick turnaround. And that was it. That was my first thing into acting, was Mount Zion. It was my very first role. And most of the roles from that one film, or most of my roles come from that one film. Taika loved what I did in Mount Zion, so he wanted me to do that little role on Hunt for the Water People. Same with other people seeing me on Hunt for the Water People, wanted me to do other stuff. So I got me an agent, and yeah, you're asking about how do I pick. To be honest, it's hard to be picky in New Zealand. There's not that much going around. Every audition I go to, I see Te Kohe, I see Xavier Horan, I see the same dudes go for the same role. So as long as the kaupapa of whatever it is aligns with what I am, if it's like too out there and it's a bit like, I can't do that, then I won't even consider it. But as long as it aligns with who I am, then I'll do it. And I didn't go through toi whakaari. I never went through acting school or anything. All of my schooling has been on screen and learning from people like Toni Morrison, from Cliff Curtis, and another film that's coming out soon. It's one thing that Tim's told us real early, me and Stan, was like, you guys aren't actors. Don't worry about trying to act. Just learn your script. But then when you're in the scenes, just listen to the other actors and respond accordingly. Like you're actually in the scenes. Like don't learn your lyrics. Learn your words, but kind of throw them away and actually be in the scene and just respond to what's coming at you instead of waiting for your line to come up. And that's kind of what I've taken into every single role that I've done. Just trying to be as natural and same if I get a script and there's stuff on there that just doesn't feel right saying, I kind of just tweak it a little bit, and the directors don't pull me up on it yet. They haven't pulled me up on it yet. But if it feels wrong coming out of my mouth, I'll slightly tweak it so that it makes it more natural. And that's my whole approach to acting, is just trying to be as believable as possible. Not trying to be cool, not trying to be like the superhero, mad, massive dude. It's just about being as believable as possible.
Tika, relatable and truthful way. And that was a really good note that director gave you. Just respond.
That was Tim. That was Tim Huata.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, and you know, sometimes the better directors were actors first, because they know how to speak to actors. Like my first director for me was Jim Moriarty, and he was really good with working with non-trained actors and getting them to a place of realism. It all had to be telling the truth, and especially with like the kaupapa that our theatre company, Te Rākau Hua, carried around the kura, which were about real issues that affected rangatahi and whānau. And so that was my toi whakaari too, being in that theatre company, being taught by Jim, and then being taught by fellow actors like with yourself, with Te Moera. And no doubt Cliff and, all the ones that have had so many vast opportunities and experiences in that particular mahi toi. So, awesome e hoa. Well, it's Mahuru Māori. We see that you're on Waiata anthems too, and with your Waiata Te Wai no Rua Whetu, which is a translation to as technology, and it's to support the bilingual music industry, also to support the vision of Te Whanaunga Hinewehi. So I've seen that you're looking at, or you've already had some translations to your album Holy Colony Burning Acres. Do you have any other Te Reo Māori compositions or projects alongside that one in the works?
I'm supposed to be working on something with The Nudge. We brought out a song earlier, a couple months ago, Hiorite. And I was just trying to bring Te Reo Māori into a different genre or different arena that probably hasn't been heard before, and got a massive response to that. So we're looking at trying to do an EP together, maybe 5 tunes. As far as my own stuff, like looking ahead, of my 10 albums, there isn't a real Māori one as part of those 10 albums, but that's 10 albums under my own name. Like, I feel like I'm going to write at least 100 albums. So there's bound to be a lot of stuff in Te Reo. But yeah, immediately, I'm trying to finish this other one that we went into the studio a couple of weeks before lockdown, and pretty much we've probably got 2 more days to finish on that one. So just trying to finish that off. We're supposed to be releasing the Holy Colony Burning Acres Whenua Hautapu Eka Mumura this week, but it's probably been postponed another month. It's out a month or so just with COVID. So we'll put that out when it's ready, but I'm looking forward to getting it out there.
E mā te wā ka taia, when the time is right, sometimes we can put so much out of ourselves, like put so much of our mahi toi out there, put it all out to the community, working on our own mahi, and out. Sometimes we just have to kia tau and whakatau and just know that when the time's right, the time will be right. Oh, man, you sound like you've got lots of awesome projects coming out, and your kete certainly sounds full. Is there anything else that you are sharing that we haven't asked you about?
Nah. Just hoping to get back on tour to finish off the Black Sea Golden Ladder tour, which we had just got through half of it. We were in Nelson, had sound check. The stage was looking nice, and then the news come from Jacinda that we're going into lockdown that night. So that would have been show number 7. So hoping to get back and finish those last 5 shows off. Because once that's finished, that's kind of it for the Black Sea Golden Ladders journey, because we're moving straight on to the next one. And that's kind of how it's been with all the albums. You've just got that small time frame, that small moment to live in that moment and then move on. But that's part and parcel of this thing that I've created, I suppose. That's how it goes.
Tika, you're sort of like, you've got such a full, schedule of releases and creativity into the different genres and different writing. It's a big undertaking, for 10 years. Outside of all the collaborative mahi that you're doing, and doing some of your, existing waiata into te reo, to support more reo Māori waiata out there. It's a big undertaking. So I totally understand that, okay, this project is now finishing. Let's move on to the next kaupapa. So
it's hard sometimes because you can find a good thing and just want to sit in it and just let it be. But I've had a couple times, even with the Zygatron album, so many people love that one and could have easily just stayed in that spacey zone. And same with the Holy Colony album. But like I said, it's just part of something that I'm still trying to figure out myself, I suppose. It's quite a new thing, so just got to let it pan out how it's going to pan out. Just ride it out.
So when you perform live, do you just decide what you want to perform, or do you focus on the newer waiata, the current mahi? Do you push that when you're performing? I saw you at on live stream with the Kupadupa, and that was a great show. And so what do you do in terms of your performances?
Yeah, it's getting more album specific now. I've had my booking agent for the last couple of years, so he's actually pushing my next album that hasn't even come out for the festival run in the summer. And I've already got a couple that haven't been made public, like headlining a couple festivals with this new album that hasn't even come out. No one's even heard any songs. So yeah, it just depends what the festivals want. So my booking agent is just going to, for every year, just going to push a certain whatever the album is. Once this run of the Black Sea Golden Ladder tour is over, that's kind of it. In saying that, I've been booked for one show down south for the folk album. So yeah, we go to each individual festival, whatever show it is, and we just play. That's the cool thing. We got options. We can do a reggae show, we can do a folk show, and depending on what show it is, it will depend on what the makeup of the band looks like. So I pretty much had the same band since the very beginning. One thing I've been doing with each album is giving them a different name, depending on what the style of music is. So we've had the first album, we had Troy Kingi and the Electric Haka Boogie. Second album, we had Troy Kingi and the Galactic Chiropractors. Third album, we had Troy Kingi and the Upper Class, the Holy Colony album. Fourth album, we had Troy Kingi and the Clutch. And this one, the folk album, we've got a couple of the last shows of the tour where we'll have the full band, and it's Troy Kingi and the Sensors. And just fast forwarding to the next album, I'm not allowed to say too much about it, but it's based unapologetically in the 80s, and it's Troy Kingi and the Promises is going to be the band over the summer. So a lot of synths and a lot of nostalgic sounds going to be popping out.
Wow, I'm a child from the 80s. I look forward to hearing that. I always find all those waiata on TikTok, and then I put them on my story because it's like I harken back to the old childhood, and my brother's sort of genres of waiata back in those days. Oh, that sounds really exciting. Troy Kingi and the Promises. Cool. And I know you're not allowed to say where because that hasn't been announced yet. So kei te pai. If you were ever requested to do like a kaupapa like Pau, have you done that before?
I have done. I was real busy when I got asked to do it, but I think I've done maybe 2 days of it. Haven't been able to do a whole waranga with it, but yeah, I'd do that any day of the week. That stuff is right up my alley. I love doing that sort of mahi.
So you're referring to the Pau Tuakana Taina, which is with the mentoring, with the rangatahi, eh?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. There's also another one of where it started, which was about the showcase. So it's like established and sort of like emerging artists performing alongside each other. So would you be into, if you did a kaupapa like that, would it be something that you'd be interested in doing, like a bit of an eclectic array of your mahi, or would you still push whatever's current?
It'll probably be all sorts. Like I said, it just depends on what the kaupapa is. For instance, if it's a folk festival, we'd probably just do a folk set. Take some of my like reggae songs and make them into folk songs as well. And that's been a cool thing on this tour. Taking songs like All Your Ships Have Sailed and Mighty Invader and stripping them back to this raw, folky acoustic vibe, and it just shows that it just makes me happy that those songs can live in any sort of setting. So that's probably what we'd do, depending on the style. If it was a reggae festival, I'd take some of the funk songs, take some of the folk songs and make them into reggae songs. Got options.
And that's the awesome thing about, like, I guess, performing in different kaupapa and festivals like that, is adjusting your waiata to, in a way, sort of support the kaupapa, you know, the genres of the festivals, and having that that flexibility to perform and to support those kaupapa. That's awesome, e hoa. We want to wish you all the best with your current nominations. We also want to thank you for sharing about your influences in your career in music as well today. And to whakakapi us, being Mahuru Māori, we'll just do a little bit of the end of whakarongo, if that's okay with you. And then either me or you could do our karakia whakamutunga. Ko koe or?
Yeah.
All right. He kupu tuku iho mo tēnei re anga.
Whakarongo, whakarongo.
Kia tau ngā tini manaakitanga ki runga i a tātou katoa. Turuturu o whiti whakamaua kia tina.
Tina.
Haumi e, hui e.
Tai ki e.
Kia ora rā e hoa. Ngā mihi ki a koe e hoa.
Thank you for having me. That was cool. That was cool.
Kei te whai. Thank you.
Yeah.
This podcast was produced and presented for Sound Centre for New Zealand Music, Aotearoa Puoro, by me, Toni Huata. The sound engineer is Phil Brownlee, and production assistance from Roger Smith, Nina Lesperance, and Ngā Huia Maniapoto. Thanks to my guest Troy Kingi, and for your generous kōrero, and thank you for listening. For more about this and other Sounds podcasts, or information about the music of Aotearoa New Zealand, go to the Sounds website, sounds.org.nz. That's SOUNZ. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Aotearoa Puoro, Sounds.